You have to lift through a full range of motion to get strong. It's one of the most common beliefs in strength training, full range of motion or bust. You've heard it before, half reps don't count, partial lifts are ego lifts, or if you can't lift it from the floor, you shouldn't lift it at all. But what if I told you one of the strongest men of all time built some record-setting squats? Not by lifting less for a full range of motion with perfect technique, but by lifting more, before he could even lift it fully in a full range of motion. Let me introduce the one, the only, Mr. Paul Anderson. Paul Anderson was an Olympic gold medalist and one of the most dominant strength athletes of the 20th century. He took methods from other OG old school lifters like Bob Peoples and adapted those so that he could build some crazy strength. These guys pioneered methods that most modern lifters still don't understand and actually may be missing out on a lot of progress. One of the methods that Paul Anderson really loved to use was called the progressive range of motion overload system. And in the 1950s, this was before there was a lot of squat racks, before any fancy machines. What Anderson would do was he would load 10 to 20 to 30 up to 200 pounds above his max squats on an 8-foot barbell filled with oil drums, okay? And then he'd stand in a hole. He basically would dig a hole in his backyard and perform short range of motion squats, and each week he'd add a little bit of dirt to that hole. Deeper squat, but the same weight. Eventually, that quarter squat became a full squat at a weight that he couldn't even dream of lifting from, a full range of motion just months prior. This wasn't ego lifting, it was a systematic overload, and it really worked. Apparently, at some point, Paul Anderson was reportedly squatting over 1,200 pounds raw, with no fancy wraps, no suit, just neural drive and guts. And now, those myths and those old legends may potentially have a little bit of exaggeration on it, but the potential and power of these overload systems is absolutely huge, and modern science actually backs this up. So modern strength science now backs what Anderson was doing intuitively. Just remember, no one was paying the scientists back then, no one was really doing anything. It was just these guys literally in their backyard digging holes and figuring out, holy shit, I'm getting stronger. I feel much stronger. For some reason, that weight that last week felt like it was almost impossible is starting to feel lighter and lighter. And this is why it worked. The number one reason is neurological desensitization, okay? And so partial lifts with a super maximal weight or weights above what is your 1RM reduce the body's natural braking systems like the Golgi tendon organ. Now, that little organ, think of it as a little safety switch. If it feels like you are putting too much force through your system, it's actually going to limit the amount that you can lift. And so basically it will just shut things down. There's reasons why this will lock down your mobility. It will also lock down your ability to lift. It's trying to protect you. And when you use these partial lifts with supramaximal weights, it actually desensitizes that so that your body starts to feel safe with these really heavy loads. Over time, this desensitization allows you to apply more force without your nervous system freaking out and shutting down. Number two is it increases motor unit recruitment. Lifting 110 to 120% or those super maximal weights of your 1RM forces the CNS to recruit high threshold fast twitch muscle fibers. What that basically means is it's going to recruit more of the muscle fibers you have. At some point, you'll be recruiting everything, so it's also going to teach them to fire faster and faster. The good thing about this is that when you're recruiting more of the muscle, they're able to twitch and fire faster. You're able to get more force, okay? And these fibers, these high threshold fibers, are the ones with the biggest growth and strength potential. More recruitment equals more strength, even if the lift is partial. So you're teaching your body to be more efficient. Number three is neural efficiency and priming. Supporting massive weights build confidence and it primes your CNS. The weight that once felt terrifying now feels manageable. And we've run lifters through this. I've run it through myself in terms of hitting PRs on squats, on Olympic lifts. One of my clients literally added 50 kilos within about 12 weeks in between competitions. We were unlocking a lot of what his nervous system potential was, by allowing him to go, 5-10 kilos over his all-time best, and essentially in between that 12 weeks, we're able to tap a lot of strength potential, and he ended up 50 kilos more in between competitions. This is also really good for something like what's called post-activation potentiation. Studies show that even a single walkout with 110% of your squat max improves performance in later sets. If you want to try this before you go full on with the full method, literally the next time that you go for a 1 RM squat, unrack 110%, walk out, hold it for 10 seconds, re-rack, 1 minute, go again. You'll feel that. Go again with your 100% or 102%. You'll find that weight feels light on your shoulders, your nervous system is lit up, and you'll be able to lift that bar much easier. Really great way to unlock a lot of strength potential. How do you use this today? Okay, so how do you use the progressive range of motion method today? You don't need a hold in the ground. Remember, this is before power racks, before squat racks, before people had pins, and all of the modern equipment today. So Paul Anderson, these guys like Paul Anderson and Bob Peoples, they would literally just dig holes in the ground. But the way that you can do it now is you just literally take a power rack and you start with a partial squat. Okay, and so in the book, The Overload System for Strength, by my mentor Tom Sheppard and Christian Thibaudeau, they have the perfect system to apply these old school methods in today's day and age. And what I learned from my mentor Tom for the system is essentially you start with a very small range of motion, say 2 to 4 inches, okay? And you're going to take that load, which is 5 to 10% above your max, and you're going to rep out as many reps as you possibly can. Now, you're probably going to get somewhere between 15 to 20 reps. This is great for tendons, this is great for desensitization, but it also is a little bit strange because, what we mostly know about strength is that you need to go on those lower reps, those lower rep ranges 1 to 3 to really build strength skill. But in this method, you're desensitizing it. And so basically you start with that top, 2 to 4 inches, and then every week you'll decrease or increase that range of motion, but don't change the weight. Each week you get a little bit lower, and you're aiming for a rep max. One of the big things is that, as you go down, your reps are going to decrease slightly depending on how you make up, but ultimately as you get lower and lower and lower, you're going to get, maybe 2 to 3 decrease in reps. What you're going to do each week is you'll lower the pins slightly, okay? Let your nervous system and connective tissue adapt to this. If you go too fast and just lower down and think 15 to 20 reps, what a waste of time. It's absolutely not. It's actually the perfect setup to really handle really large loads. You just have to be patient with it and trust the process. What you also need to do though is obviously you need to integrate full range of motion training. And I got a bit of hate for this and people are like, this is just ego lifting. But what people don't see is the full system. Okay, and so something like the progressive range of motion method is if you were to just do that and then remove the main list for a full range of motion, you do potentially have some skill loss. So make sure you keep in your full range of motion methods and squats, or your full range of motion exercises. And often what's really good, especially in the early phase or early part of a program like this, is to choose an exercise that's actually going to train for a larger range of motion and potentially be something that deletes a weakness. Say for example something, let's say your quads are weak in a squat. Choosing something like a heels elevated front squat or just a front squat in general is going to train for a much larger range of motion than generally you'll use in a back squat, and it's also going to strengthen those quads. This is going to keep tendon integrity and joint range of motion as well, but also keep the nervous system skill-wise to know the full range of motion as well. So you can also pair this method with weakness settings, weakness deletion methods, something like a functional isometric or overcoming isometric, and sticking points and weak points as well. Good thing about them is isometrics is they're not super taxing, because these the progressive range of motion method does have quite a large neurological cost, especially as you get heavier, because obviously you're holding heavier and heavier weights, but your nervous system does really adapt really well. This method is best used in anywhere between a 6-8 week block. You can probably go a little bit longer, maybe 10 to 12 weeks depending on the person, but also at the rate of progress as well. And it's perfect if you've done a really large strength skill block. We have a lifter right now. Our goal is to break the Australian deadlift record of about 365 kilos. We're going to go through a 16-week phase of just some really quality strength skill work, where he'll be just dialing in all of his technique, dialing in just being able to handle more and more reps at around that 80 to 90%. If you've watched my Doug Hepburn video, which is on this channel as well, you'll find that that's the method that we're going to use very similar, because we want to acclimatize his body to using, to be able to handle those high threshold weights, and then we're going to peak it with this system. And I'm very excited. I think we might be able to lift even more than that 365 kilos. Why this works beyond just muscle, Paul Anderson didn't just get stronger, he recalibrated his nervous system, what his nervous system believed was possible. The side effects: confidence under a heavy load, improved bar speed, faster firing rate of muscle fibers, total CNS arousal, massive strength carryover. Modern coaches like Thibaudeau and Tom Sheppard now teach versions of Anderson's method, okay? Their book, The Overload Strength System, is absolutely incredible. I do recommend it. I have learnt a lot from that, and we have applied a lot of those methods. So let's be clear. You don't have to use progressive range of motion. You don't have to use progressive range of motion for lifting. But if you're stuck, if you're plateaued, or if your CNS trebles every time you unrack a new PR attempt, it might be time to lift more than you can lift, just not all at once. This is Neuro overclocking. It's not hype. It's what record lifters have used for decades. Anderson wasn't just lifting weight, he was lifting limits. If you'd like to try the system for yourself, do comment Anderson in below. I have a bit of a 2-week sample of this I'm happy to share, so you guys can see what this sort of program looks like. You don't have to train harder, you just need to train smarter, just like the old school strength legends did.